Hello, everybody. Suzanne Kellner-Zinck, Donny Vision's Hypnosis, here to talk to you about purpose. There's a lot of people out there who speak about their passion, the reason why they are. However, few of these same people will ever speak about those things that truly matter, because all they care about is getting people to love them up and follow what they're saying, even though much of what they're saying is a bunch of bullshit, in my humble opinion. And I say this because I've been in this world now for 64 years, of which, I don't know, probably the last 50 or so I've had any real meaning, and of which the last, since maybe 2002 or so, gave me a really good idea as to how people are manipulated by the powers that be. Since 2017, when I started back to academia for my 3 master's degrees, I've been able to do a deep dive into a lot of very concerning content in academia, so-called peer-reviewed articles in the journals that, shall we say, medical/mental health providers are supposed to be reading in order to get the facts regarding how to best help their clients and patients heal. The sad truth is that there are actually peer-reviewed articles stating that there's a lot of problems with these so-called empirical studies because they manipulate the statistics. They come to conclusions that were not proven in the statistics, even if they reported the statistics seemingly appropriately. A lot of cases, the study design was not appropriate or conducted wrong. And sometimes there's just outright lies, because very often the people who are paying for these studies are also making a lot of money off the so-called results of these studies. We call that conflict of interest. So I want you to understand something very, very important. I've never had a problem saying my truth. It started when I was 8 years old, when my grandmother decided to talk shit about my mother to me. Now, admittedly, my mother had a lot of problems. She died back in September 2017 at the age of 84. And my mother had her problems. She had a lot of emotional problems, and she was a very difficult person to live with at times, especially for my 2 older sisters who unfortunately received a lot of horrific abuse at her hands. I am not sure if either of them ever told my father about their problems. I don't recall them ever telling me they ever did that. The man was at work, playing golf, tennising, etc. Was not in the house a whole lot of the time. Although he was in the house enough to watch a lot of TV in the evening into the wee hours of the morning. And then he'd wake up at 7 o'clock and be in his office by 8 o'clock. After his office day at 5 p.m., he'd either go golfing or tennising, depending on what season it was. That was how he got his exercise and hung out with people who shared his ability to play sports. He was actually a really good jockey, even though he looked really funny on the tennis court. He had a big belly and really strong, muscular legs and arms in his hat, his floppy hat, because he was not bald. He had a comb over, and he would get sunburnt, which would make my mother really upset when he'd go play tennis in the heat of the day. Even she had no control over him, which is a good thing. In any case, I bring this to your attention because there are people out there who want to manipulate you, as my grandmother was trying to do, and I was not having any of it. And I basically told her that she had 4 other granddaughters who would listen to her commentary about my mother quite happily. Not me. I was the one that had all the learning disabilities. I was the one where she was able to play teacher, which her mother would not allow her to go to college to learn how to be a teacher, because in those days, according to my grandmother, she would be an old maid if she had done that. Instead, she forced her to go into secretarial school. She had one job with a plumber for 1 year until she met my father, who she married shortly after he began his practice, she actually showed me some of the love notes that he had written her while they were dating and in the beginning of his practice, because in those days they couldn't advertise. Everything had to be done through referrals. And he did build a very wonderful practice, actually. He was able to take care of his 5 daughters and his stay-at-home wife. Not bad. And he never had to screw over anybody. He was very minimalist in the work that he did with his patients, only selling the services that they actually required to be healthy, and in some cases, get a beautiful smile because their teeth were rotting out of their mouths. I know, because I worked with him in his office. We all had to. Because it was a really good tax break for him, and we were able to get an idea of what he did for a living, which I really loved. And he also became my first role model, although he never lived long enough to see me actually become a practicing hypnotist. My mother did, actually, and I did do some work with her over the years for anxiety and pain control, most especially. But he never lived long enough. He died when I was 23, and I didn't get into hypnotism until I was 40 years old, quite a few years later. But he still remains my first role model in how to deal with patients in his case and clients in my case. You never hire on people who do not respect what you do. You joke with them, you give them a good time, and we hypnotists generally like to have fun. We understand that it's through fun that our clients are best able to heal and move on in life. Yes, sometimes you have to get into the serious things, and I hold my clients accountable to do their homework and to do the work they need to do. And if they're playing games with themselves, manipulating themselves, or trying to manipulate me, I call them out on all that bullshit because that's my job. See and understand what they're saying, between the lines of what they're saying, and what they're not saying, and call them out on all of it. Because until unless that is done, they are not going to heal. And believe it or not, my clients actually appreciate that, because even my anorexic clients are funny as hell, and the bulimics as well, who most of them were in their early 20s when they got or get treatment from me, because that's the age when they realize that everything else that they tried has not worked. And they understand that maybe it was their subconscious mind that was causing the problem in the first place. Or maybe they just want an alternative way to do the healing because conventional world let them down. Worse than many of you could ever understand. That being as it may, stating the truth is important. I cannot tell you how much bullshit I read from my classmates in my, shall we say, doctoral studies in psychology. And it's not their fault. It's because of the text and the articles that are required that go back 20 years or more that do not reflect what we have learned through brain scans, neurology, and really the heart-brain and the gut-brain connection and how all that works together. One needs to understand the physiology of the body, which is why I'm really grateful that I did my nursing school studies back from 1997 to 1999. I hated nursing, so I didn't end up going to nursing. But those prerequisite studies certainly did help a whole lot in understanding the bodily systems and things about the blood-brain barrier and other things that we need to understand if we're going to help our clients. Because a lot of emotional looking stuff isn't emotional. I say this over and over and over again everywhere I create content. There's a lot of people who have issues with metabolizing their nutrients, most especially the amino acids and proteins that are the means of developing the neurotransmitters that give clarity of thinking and emotional regulation. Dr. Greenblatt, a wonderful man who has been for 30 or 40 years working as a nutritional psychiatrist, has written several books on the various types of emotional problems people can have, anorexia, depression, OCD, etc., has been educating medical people and the public at large in terms of how they can better help themselves nutritionally to overcome a lot of these common problems that drugs do not help. They don't. And we know that from the studies and placebo effects that Dr. Irvin Kirsch had done for, 30 years. He's out of Harvard University. And he used antidepressants, I believe it was SSRIs in particular, in which to conduct the studies. And Dr. Walter Brown out of Brown University had replicated those studies. And in fact, the NIH in Great Britain doesn't even prescribe antidepressant medication unless someone has what is known as what do they call it? Major depressive disorder. Because they have found that often when people are put on these drugs, it causes more problems in the long run, not less. And many times they do not help with the depression. Not really. Mood stabilizers do help. But again, it's a Band-Aid. It doesn't take care of the problem. In my case, Todd James, God bless him, he's in the heavens now. He died a few years ago. Told me how I could get rid of what was known back in those days as manic depression, known as bipolar 2 these days, in 5 minutes of timeline therapy back in 2004. And one can easily tell that they no longer have that problem, because when you have that problem, as in my case, I was depressed for 6 months, hardly able to get out of bed during the winter months. And when the clocks were, let's say, fall back, push forward in the spring, I became totally hypomanic, happy, and did a lot of stupid things, very embarrassing things when I think about it back to those days. And now I have very realistic, shall we say, spectrum of emotions in the normal spectrum. And I have, shall we say, normalized, non-depressive, non-hypomanic emotions since 2004, February, Valentine's Day weekend. Thanks again, Todd James, for teaching me how to make that happen, because I had to do that for myself. Well, Matt helped me. His son helped me with the first one because I was so depressed I couldn't remember how to do timeline therapy, which is the means used even after working with my clients with timeline therapy for 8 months previous to this. But that's what happens when you're so depressed your brain can't function. And another really interesting thing that I found out when I was doing some research for one of my papers for my doctoral program is trying to figure out why timeline therapy worked. And it seems to be that it helps with the dopamine dysregulation, because that's actually what causes bipolar, interestingly enough. So, where am I going with this? I want you to know that there's a lot of information out there that's published as fact. The government wants you to believe as fact, which is not actually fact. And that is very scary for those people who are placed on medication for their lifetimes, mainly those who have been diagnosed with, shall we say, chronic mental illness, some DSM label. And with that, the prescription, because of the 5 minutes that, well, 15 minutes on average, I guess, psychopharmacologist, psychiatrists that just use pharmaceuticals to treat their patients, get to see their patients each time they see their patients. I'm here to tell you, you cannot learn anything about your patient or how to help them heal if you only see them for 15 minutes. My first session with my clients is a detailed personal history, and that takes 2.5 hours to 3 hours, from which I create their treatment plan. And then the work takes as long as it takes, because each client processes information at different speeds in different ways. That's just a reality. 95% of the clients, patients placed on these toxic drugs do not need them. I know this from 25 years of experience working with them, never needing drugs. If they can heal without being on drugs, why the hell do they need to be on drugs? Good question. So I am publishing a Substack with this information from the folks who are actually doing real studies and are coming up with real information that you need to know, especially regarding the medications for mentally ill clients, but for other ones too in the medical field. And to give you some, shall we say, non-invasive ways to help yourself heal and overcome the things that most of us have to go through in life, because life is full of challenges. Challenges our Creator gives us so we can become strong and healthy and see through the smoke and mirrors that others in positions of control over us would like us to believe, so they can make money off our tragedies. Well, I don't know about you, but I'm done with it. So, well, and have been for a really long time, frankly. And I do push back in my classes, and it's really interesting because my professors do not argue with me because I have the practical experience and I have the case histories and I can find the studies to back up every damn thing I said. So they can't really argue my point because, well, many of them are a lot younger than me and don't have the practical experience that I have had both in the conventional healthcare field, the conventional medical field, and, shall we say, complementary health field using hypnotism and NLP to help my clients heal once and for all and forever in 95% of cases. Because frankly, folks, I don't take on just anybody. They have to go through a free consultation call to see if we're a good match, see if they're willing to do whatever it takes to heal. They're willing to invest the money it will take and the time to heal. Because if you want real healing, it costs money. And no, it's not paid for through insurance. Insurance doesn't cover hypnosis, which I'm actually really glad about because it is when people invest in themselves that they heal. It's a fact. Go talk to all the coaches out there who are selling their stuff saying the exact same thing. But I don't consider myself a coach. I consider myself an old-time hypnotist, an NLP practitioner, certified trainer of both, and a mentor to my clients. I want them to replicate what I have been able to create in my life because I have a really great life. I do whatever the hell I want every day I live, for the most part. And I live where I want, among the people I love and care about because they love and care about me. Hell, just yesterday, my adopted family here in Albania brought me birthday cakes. They're like little cakes, miniature cakes they got from the bakery. And my beloveds, they were cheese pies, actually. Sort of like the spinach pies that you get in Greece. And she asked me, well, she actually had told me that they had forgotten the bread and if I was okay with that. And she knew she's bringing the laundry back tomorrow because she does my laundry because I pay her to clean my apartment 2 times a month because it's the only way she's able to come over here because she doesn't drive. So she came back today because I asked her to bring some vegetables. They're able to get them really super cheap and they grow a lot of stuff. And so she brought me a whole ton of them. And that's like really wonderful because now I can make my potato salad. I can make my potato soup. I can make my salads. And it's just a really great gift. They always know the best stuff to buy anyway, or to pick out of their gardens and off the fruit trees when their fruit trees are growing fruit. Orange time. Oh my God, they bring over so many oranges. No one person could eat them all for a fact. And I only live by myself. So there you go. Beautiful, loving, caring, wonderful people. And she cleaned my place so well. I have some photos I'm going to put up on my Facebook page later on today of her cleaning my place. Just throwing a container's worth of water at the floor, at the sink, at the toilet, at the shower, on the floor to clean the floor. Amazingly clean. It was like amazing. It was fun to watch her do it. And she had a good time doing it. We had a really good time. We always do. So, oh yes, and no, I don't speak her language. She doesn't speak mine. We do it all through Google Translate. And when she starts talking to me in Albanian, it's like, no comprende Albanian, because her husband, Ferry, will always say, no comprende English. But we're learning a little bit how to understand some words, and her husband is funny as hell. I just wish I understood Albanian because he's hysterical. In any case, what is your purpose? What are you willing to take a stand for? Stop being fearful of people who might decide that they don't like you because of what you have to say. Because what I have found in my life is by speaking my truth, I've received a lot of people who are inspired and admire me because I don't let anyone talk shit in my face and haven't forever. I'm not here to make people like me or respect me. I don't care. The people who get me, and the people who don't. And I have friends all over the world. I have adopted kids all over the world, quote unquote. Many of them past clients who stay with me and keep me up to date with the fabulous lives they're living since they work with me because I invite them to do that. I also invite them to get tune-ups whenever they need them. Because in many cases, almost all cases, They paid me a little money to do the work I did with them. So to spend 45 minutes with them to help them clear something is no big deal. So that is my message for you. Speak your truth, prove it, and have a great life, because when you honor yourself and your own understandings of the truth seen through the smoke and mirrors of our societies, you'll live a much happier, more contented life. Knowing that the people who love and care about you because you've been authentically, transparently you. And there's nothing better than knowing that as your truth. One of the first learnings I give to my anorexic and bulimic clients who are so used to, shall we say, people-pleasing behavior, because that's what they needed to do in order to survive their childhoods. But you know what? When you become an adult, you damn well better learn how to be who you are. Or you're never going to know that you're loved for who and what you are in this world. I trust you found this to be really helpful. There's a whole bunch of, shall we say, resources that you can find in the, what do they call it, description below, including a subscription link to my brand new Substack that's going to be coming out weekly on Mondays to share the facts I cannot share on, shall we say, conventional social media. In fact, LinkedIn proved that to me. I posted that article, which had to do with ADD and ADHD and the problems that being on these drugs due to some of the patients long term. And they said it was against their community rules, regulations, whatever the hell they call them. Even though the article had peer-reviewed resources cited and at the end of the article, as one would do in academia. So there you go. They don't want you to know the truth. Sad, but true. All right. Thanks for spending your time with me. Until next time. Bye-bye all.